to YouTube, and
Great.
it's even public because why not? Okay, I think we're live.
Uh, I'm not ready yet.
So, can we start?
Oh, I think. Oh, yes. Just a second.
Okay, no problem. We're waiting for you.
Okay, so let me present my screen. Yeah, probably now you see the presentation, right?
Yes, I see it.
Okay, nice. I think we can start. So, welcome everyone to weekly Sun Academic seminars. Today we are going to speak about MakerDAO and MakerDAO dashboards. That is a new Santiment product that we built for Maker community. I wanna tell that it's gonna be about 1 hour talk, and in the first part, I will tell you about what is MakerDAO, what is the concept around this, and what is it needed for. And the second part, much bigger part, I'll tell you about all metrics we have. I'll try to explain them, how they work, how is it computed, and how you can use them. So my goals for this seminar is to give clear explanation for the metrics, as I have said, how they work, and show some tips and tricks that might be not so obvious when you first see the graphs. So I think it would be useful for advanced users. And I want to show for Santiment team our new product, how it's built, and maybe it will help our business team to work with this product from business perspective. Okay, let's start.
Also, just one thing. So this seminar is intended to be public. We will put the video on YouTube. So just have this in
Yeah,
mind.
sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the concept of MakerDAO. So cryptocurrencies at the end of the day are currencies, and one of the main functions of the real money is saving the money and payment. And there is one huge problem around cryptocurrencies. It's volatility. So when you want to buy some, for example, Big Mac for Bitcoin, and you want to save it for example, next year, that's not really a good idea because Bitcoin is very volatile. So that doesn't work actually. There are some stable currencies like fiat currencies, for example, Euro or USD. And in this graph, you can see that Bitcoin price is much more stable in USD dollars and in BTC terms. So that means that if you want to buy Big Mac every day, it's much more safer to use USD dollars but not Bitcoin. That's actually one of the biggest problems of cryptocurrencies because currently they are considered as some financial assets but not as real money for savings. And the native solution for this problem is to create some tokens that is designed to minimize the volatility of the price of it relative to some stable asset, for example, USD dollar. And there were some centralized model of issuing tokens with this, for example, Tether. Some years ago, they managed to build a stablecoin called USDT, and it was backed by dollar. But the problem with this was actually centralized model of issuing tokens. What does it mean? That means that if you come to Tether company and you give them $1, they issue you one USD token back. And actually, that's not gonna work because that is a centralized model and it's based on trust, and that's not really how crypto works. And this trust model give a possible possibility for leverage for Tether Limited company. And actually, some moment the leverage of like actually they issued a lot of tokens, but they didn't have enough funds to cover this debt. So in some moments, USDT price fell up to 0.98 cents or even less, and at some point was even bigger than 1.05 cents. And that's not actually a good story about stablecoin because it's intended to be as stable as it can. And when your stablecoin appears to cost as 1.5 cents, that's maybe not really good for you. So I can conclude this centralized model doesn't work good, at least for now. Native solution for this problem is to create a decentralized model of issuing tokens. And there were several attempts to achieve this. And I would say MakerDAO is one of the most successful one of them. So the goal for Maker community and Maker project is to create a stablecoin that would be backed by dollar and its price would be exactly the same as dollar. So that's what MakerDAO wants to achieve, and now let's see how it works. Before we start, let me tell you about little thing that's called roped-is. So roped-is is a ERC20 compliant clone of Ethereum, and the reason you need roped-is is to be able to interact with smart contracts using Ethereum as any ERC20 token. So that actually allows you to, for example, trade with ETH for other ERC20 tokens of decentralized platforms, and you can't succeed it with ETH itself, but with its clone as roped-is, you can do it easily. You can exchange your ETH coins to roped-is at any point. So that's quite important thing to understand. So MakerDAO slide with lots of text here. So Maker is a smart contract platform on Ethereum that backs and stabilizes the value of DAI through a dynamic system of central collateralized debt positions and some other stuff. So let me briefly explain you how does it work. So the whole system works through a system of CDPs, as I have said, collateralized debt positions. And for example, imagine you you have some ETH and you want to take some stable coins because you, for example, you expect that price of ETH is going down, or maybe you need to pay for your meal or something else. So you want to issue some stable currency. At that moment, you open a CTP, then you transfer your ETH as a collateral asset to a CTP. After that point, you can generate from DAI from your debt, and at that point, you can transfer and do whatever you want with your DAI coins. But your Ethereum coins are locked on a smart contract. You can transfer them, but instead of this, you have equivalent of DAI. When you decide that you don't need DAI anymore, you can pay down the debt and the stability fee. So, what is stability fee here? From the economic perspective, when you give your ETH to a CDP and get back some stable asset, you actually have to pay a fee for the risk because actually CDP takes a risk of ETH that if it's going down. So the maker fee, which is paid in maker tokens, is actually the fee for the risk for MakerDAO platform. When you paid your maker tokens and DAI to a CDP, you can get back your ETH and close the CDP if you don't need it anymore. So that's the basic thing how CDP works. Oh, that's advanced scheme. That scheme shows you how the whole system works. Of course, it's a little bit simplified, but that's the best picture I've ever seen for explaining the CDP itself. So let's go through this process once again, but with more precise view on how does it work from the from technical point of view. So imagine you have an ETH. So what should you do to issue some DAI? First of all, you have to convert your ETH to roped ETH. That's as you remember, ERC20 compliant token of Ethereum. And you can do it via smart contract that is not part of MakerDAO system. After that, you can join pooled ETH pool. So that's actually a pool of roped ETH tokens that you can join, and you do it with two methods. First method is join, and second method is exit. When you want to join the pool, you eventually join. You use join method, and vice versa with exit. So after that, when you deposit your roped ETH to the pool, from the technical point of view, you off pooled ETH tokens. The thing is, not the thing is, one roped ether is not equal to one pooled ether, but that's a detail we don't cover it now. Now imagine you happy having pooled ETH tokens. What should you do next? At that point, you can lock your pooled ether tokens, that actually equivalent of your ETH, and at that point, you go exactly to that position that is mentioned here. So your ETH is on CDP, but you still don't have any DAI. To issue DAI, you have to call a draw method. So that locks your pooled ETH tokens, and that gives you DAI from this CDP. At this point, you can do with your DAI anything you want. And when you decided that that's enough, you can wipe your DAI, paid some maker tokens for the fee, or then free your pooled Ether token from the CDP, then exit the pool to get your roped ETH tokens and exchange your roped ETH tokens to Ethereum back. So that's the whole cycle. Also note that you have to open a CDP because you can't lock your funds to a CDP that is not opened. You can also shut this down. That's needed if you decided that you don't need any more any CDPs and you just turn it off. And you can pass your CDP with a give method. So you don't own this CDP anymore, but still have a debt. That is the basic cycle. But the interesting thing is byte events. So what is byte event? Imagine you put $100 in is equivalent to a CDP. At that point, actually, you can't issue 100 DAI. You have to issue 10 percentage of it. That's needed for example, if the is price going down, you have to be safe that you don't steal too much DAI because the price of DAI is stable, and that's achieved with collateralization ratio. And currently, collateralization ratio is 1.5. That means that for each 1.5 put is, you will get only 100 dice. So that's it. But imagine when you already put your pooled is tokens to a CDP and the price of is going down. What could happen? That could happen that you don't have sufficient amount of ether that stabilizes your DAI coins. That could be a problem, but some actors from a maker community that is called keepers, or you can actually be any address you want, but it's usually called keepers. They can execute byte method on your CDP. What is needed for? So what happens on this point? At this point, they call a byte method, and your CDP is being liquidated. At this point, you receive the value of leftover collateral minus the debt, stability fee, and liquidation penalty. So you just get back your Ether, but you don't get equivalent of stability fee that you anyway need to have to pay, and you need to pay a liquidation penalty. That's like a tax for somebody liquidates your debt position. At this point, pooled Ether that is laid on your CDP, it is set for sale, and users can purchase your pooled Ether by paying DAI. All DAI paid this way are immediately removed from the DAI supply until an amount equal to a CDP debt has not been removed. So that's actually the liquidation process. So you burns DAI, that reduces DAI supply, the equivalent of your CDP, and you get back your pooled ETH if it's still there is, and the fee is still paid to the community. So nothing bad happens. These events happen quite often, so that protects the DAI system against being under collateralized. So that's one of the key things for Maker, to be sure that nothing bad happens actually. This boom and past events, that's not so important for now because we don't count this, but they're used for purchasing and selling DAI when the auction sale happens. So keepers, or actually any address that wants to purchase some pooled Ether, it can sell DAI or buy DAI with its methods boom or bust. It is made via site-up contract, that's its name, and all trades happen on Oasis DEX. That's the native decentralized exchange of MakerDAO. That's basically the whole cycle. One thing I want to mention before we go to the metrics is that Maker has a decentralized model of issuing tokens, but it has mixed model of governance. So when some parameters that are created for MakerDAO system are fixed. For example, stability fee. So as you remember, stability fee is the amount of fee that you need to pay when you close your debt. So currently stability fee is 16.5%, but it could be changed via governance procedure. That is actually happens for those people who own some Maker coins. That is done for voting system. So once you own Maker token, you vote for decision if we need to change something or not. And if the majority of people voted for changes, Maker Maker company, it's sends the transaction for changing some fixed parameter, for example, stability fee, and after that it's been fixed. That happens not so often, but still that's a kind of mixed model of governance. That's, at my point of view, that's not an elegant solution, but that works as well. So at this point, that's at the end of part one, where I wanted to tell you about all MakerDAO system and how it works. And if you have any questions or some unclarities, please let me know, because when we go to the metrics itself, it would be bad if you don't understand anything. So any questions so far?
I have one question. Or okay, something that was not clear to me. Um, the stability fee, how is it calculated? Does it depend on how long you hold the die, or is it some fixed percentage of the debt? Or yeah,
Yeah, got you. Stability fee is an annual percentage yield that is calculated on the top of your existing debt of the CDP, and it is paid by you as a CDP user. So that's annual rate that you just have to pay when you close your debt. So that's like just an bank interest rate or something like that.
okay, thank you.
And when I liquidate or when I pay back my loan, I don't actually have to own any Maker, right? Like for the whole process, I don't need to own Maker in any way.
That's different if you just pay back your pay back your debt, or if you get liquidated. Actually, if you get liquidated, you don't need to do anything. The whole community works from you. And if you want to wipe some DAI, sorry, for example, if you need to close your CTP, you have to pay Maker with you have to pay wipe for with Maker tokens. The thing is, you can pay it with DAI, but still that's converted on Oasis DEX to Maker, and it's anyway paid in Maker. But actually, you can do it automatically via Oasis Exchange with existing DAI coins.
Okay.
I also have a question. So if I own an online shop and someone pays me with a DAI, but I'm interested in converting into dollars, I would try to liquidate the DAI. But is that so? But in that case, would it be me who is gonna pay the liquidation fee? And in that case, wouldn't I get less than $1?
No, actually not. If you don't owe a CTP, you don't need to pay any fees. So at this point, if you are a shop owner, you just convert your DAI to dollars via some exchange, for example, Coinbase, and that's it. I think the question is also what happens if nobody wants to pay a fee. That happens on a liquidation process. So at that point, fees is taken from your pooled Ether that is been set as collateral, and that's it. So that's actually paid in any way by the person who opened the CDP. Did you get it?
Yeah. So basically, I would be selling the DAI on a third-party exchange, and I wouldn't be liquidating it.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So if not, I think we can go to our app that is called crafts.santiment.net/MakerDAO. That's at least for now, that's free for everybody, and you can open it by yourself and explore. So let me start. So MakerDAO stats are one of the most complicated things for MakerDAO that I've ever seen. And that's advantage of it, that it's take a lot of metrics in a single place. So you don't have to jump from different sources like Maker tools or DeFi pools or something else. Can get any metrics from the Maker community that are popular just here. So the structure of the app is quite simple. We have a bunch of metrics split by the tabs. We have network activity stats, event stats, CDP stats, etc. And each tab contains some different metrics about this. Let's go one by one. Network activity, that's about on-chain metrics. So it's basically the basic on-chain stuff for DAI token and Maker token that present on our platform in Grafana or some other places like Sandbase or OTP. And so I don't want to stop on this a lot. Yeah, just show you how it works. So it has several controllers like time range, price management, token, and smoothing. So time range just the thing if you want to for all graphs to specify some given time range. For example, this one, all graphs changed for applied to this time range. Price management is a you can actually plot the price of ETH, DAI, or Maker on the graphs. So here you can see the DAI price, but if you want, for example, to compare it with ETH price, you just change it here, and now you see ETH price, not the DAI price. Token, that's a token you want to explore. Both DAI and Maker have the same on-chain statistics. So you can both investigate how DAI behaves or, for example, how Maker behaves, and you see different metrics for them. And smoothing, just smoothing, you can smooth your data if you want to see the whole picture. That's how it works. Address activity. So now let's go to the metrics itself. I'm not going to stop at this, as I have said, because we have it already and we explained it a lot of times, but just for you to make sure that you know this. One of the most basic metrics and at the same time one of the most important is daily active addresses. So on this graph, we show actually three categories of addresses. That is called daily active addresses. That's basically all addresses that interact on a given day with a network. New addresses, that is the amount of addresses that just appear on the blockchain on that day. Daily active deposits, that's a number of deposit addresses that is used for central exchanges. And number of daily active withdrawals, that's amount of withdrawal addresses that is used for the withdrawals from central exchanges. You see the dynamics of Maker addresses, and what I could say that it's growing through the time. So if you go to basic time range, you see that with last year it grows significantly. So I can conclude that a lot of new people joined the system. Also, you see the spike here. I'm going to talk about this spike a little bit later. Next metric is transaction stats, transaction volume stat. That's actually amount of tokens that have been transacted via blockchain on a given day. So that's not an exchange volume, but the total volume of all transactions that happened on the day. Number of transactions, that's pretty clear. Mean and median transaction values, that's still pretty clear. You see that's not really good here, but you can zoom it. So from what I can see, that the mean transaction value is much more, like usually it's more than median transaction value. So I can conclude that there are a lot of small transfers of Maker token. Daily token circulation, that's basically the basic amount of tokens that are active in the blockchain for a given day. So you see that's also some funny pictures here, and you can, for example, take Maker price to compare price of Maker token with its token circulation stats. Percentage of active coins, I think that's more relevant for DAI coin. So you just plot DAI coin and DAI price. So percentage of active coins are the graph. This graph shows you actually how much of coin that are being active within a given time range. For example, here on the yesterday, we had 91% of coin that been active for 1 year. It basically means that 9% of coins that 9% of all coins, all dice that are in the supply, they were not active for last 1 year. So maybe they are lost, maybe not. So that's the thing. And you can check it with different intervals, like half a year, like a couple of months, and 1 day. Tokenage consumed, that's the metric developed originally by Santiment, and it basically shows you the amount of token changing addresses on a certain date, and it's multiplied by the number of days since they've been last moved. So when you see a big spike, that could happen in two cases. First case is that was a big transaction volume, so it spikes, or somebody moved tokens that were laying on a particular address for a very long time, and that caused the spike as well. And the last one on this tab is top transactions. That's basically top transactions by its value for given time range that is specified here. For example, if you want to see the transactions happen, for example, last 2 days, you just check this controller, change this controller, and go back to top transactions. Of course, you see some strange things because it's only 2 days. Yeah, but now you see top transactions that occurred last 2 days. And the thing is, you can investigate this if you want. For example, you see that this transaction was from some unknown address to compound, and you can investigate this going to, for example, Etherscan, and you can check this address. What is it? Maybe that's some known entity, or maybe that's your address. So you can just check what is this. So that was on-chain stats. And now let's move to some advanced stats that is based on actually this scheme placed here. I hope you remember all the events. That's basically free and lock for your put ether and wipe and drop from your DAI. So this tab shows you amount of these events happening on each day. They're quite similar, all these four. So I will tell you about amount of locks and volume of locks. So the amount of locks and frees, basically the amount of locks and free events happening on the blockchain on a particular day. Let's take this interval. And you see that last maybe 2 months, it was on average much more amount of locks at freeze. So lots of people actually doing locks. So they pulled ETH to a CDP, and not so much of them do free. So they free less than they lock. So that's basically it. But the thing is, we don't actually care much about the amount of locks and frees. We do care about its volume. And if you check the same volume, you can see that the picture is quite different. Again, the blue one are locks, and the orange one are freeze. So now you see the picture is quite different, and on each particular day, you can see the difference between how much was locked via system and how much was were freed. The thing that also might be useful for you are these controllers. So that's again price measurement. You can plot DAI price or maker price or ETH price on all the graphs you have here. Yeah, that's DAI price. Okay. And measurement for volume related graphs, that's actually a token that is show you the volume. So here you see it's measured in DAI, so you compare it in DAI terms. But imagine you want to compare it in ETH terms for some reason. So just change this controller, and now you see the volume of locks and frees are rechanged. And now you compare ETH volumes. So that might be also useful for you.
Just one question. So from the graph that you showed originally, the way I understand it is that the lock and free actions, you're locking and freeing Ether, right?
Actually, yes, but not the Ether, pooled Ether. But
yes.
Mhm.
So isn't it more natural to look at the volume in ETH and not in DAI?
Yeah, so you can do it with this controller.
Okay.
So at that point, you can check the ETH as I just made.
Okay.
So now you see the volume of ETH, not the DAI. The reason why we put DAI first, because you also have a volume of drawn vibes, and these events happen with DAI only. And the thing is, the most like common use case is to compare a volume that have been logged and that have been drawn. So actually want to see how much or how many pooled ETH tokens are logged, but not generate, but not but DAI wasn't generated from them. And you can compare it when you see it in ETH and this graph or in DAI. But if they have the same measurement, for example, DAI, you can easily compare it, and it's more convenient to do it with DAI because DAI is it's close to $1. So actually, as it's shown here, where is it? Oh, that is. Yeah, so if you see 1,000 of DAI locked, so that means around $1,000 were locked. So that's easy to think about this in this case. So yeah, that's the first part of this step. It shows you the volume and amount of locks and freeze events, and volume and amount of wipes and draws events. Second part.
So what insights can you get from this? So what does what can you learn? I really don't understand the system very much, so it would be interesting to if you can explain.
First thing, you investigate the dynamics of how people interact with the MakerDAO. So you see if they lock a lot, that means that actually Maker community is healthy and it's growing. And if they start, if they stop locking the pooled Ether token, that means that less DAI will generate it, and that may be the sign of something happens. That's like one of the use cases. Another thing is to understand some abnormal activity, and you can see it here. So you see a lot of locks and freeze events via system, but actually the volume didn't change a lot. So that's something strange. And as you remember, there was same spike in network activity stats, and basically the time to unleash the secret. So at that point of time, Coinbase, that is one of crypto exchanges, they launched a program for its users. So the schema was if you open some CDP, you can get some free money from Coinbase. So they want to teach the users how to interact with DAI platform. And that causes a lot of events like locks and freeze. A lot of people started to lock their funds, but the volume didn't change because that was so inefficient amount of funds that actually the whole volume didn't change. And that's like one of use cases to understand what's going within the network. Also, that these graphs, when you compare it, you need to do it manually for DAO. You need to compare how much is well locked and how much DAI depth was generated, and potentially how more DAI could be generated within a given day. So that gives you understanding of how DAI supply could change, and that may correlate with the price, for example, or something like that. Another thing, or maybe the last one I will tell you, is the amount of like equivalent of lock draw cycle, but wipe and free cycle. So you see how many people do vibes. So they pay pay back the debt with DAI, and then they get back their ETH. And if there is some abnormal activity of making some free events like here, it might indicate that people don't trust Maker anymore, or maybe there are some other platforms being opened, for example, Compound. By the way, some few weeks ago it lowered its interest rate, and lots of MakerDAO users switched to Compound, and that causes this decline. And I think there are a lot of use cases, but that's the common ones. I think I tried to answer a question.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. And of course, on any graph, you can just switch off any metric you want. So don't forget about this. Yeah, and next 4 graphs are basically the same. They again show volume of each event, but we split every address that is transact with these events by category, and it falls to a category depending on how much ETH it has in a collateral. So for example, if you want to see only big players, so you want to understand how big players how much volume is generated by like top players, you can choose these ones, and you see events of logs for addresses that have much more than 10,000 Ether backed, or more than 100,000 Ether backed on their CDPs. And that basically shows you the behavior of each group that is interact with Maker system. And you can do it with all these things you want. So for example, going back to this Coinbase effect, when Coinbase launched this program, you see that there were not so activity from, that was some activity from big players. But if you changed for small players that have only few CDP, only few ETH on its back, you see that that's actually basically nothing in comparison to this. You see, so this Coinbase effect that happened here, it basically didn't change the whole MakerDAO system, because the volume of its log, it was so tiny, so that didn't actually matter. And you can put any things you like, so any groups you like, and that's available for both logs, freeze, throws, and vibes. For example, let's check it for vibes. You see that in the last few days, lots of vibes was generated by category with logged ETH as more than 1,000 but less than 10,000 Ether. And that actually shows you how do people actually interact with your system. So are they just playing with this as this small category, or are they just making some serious things like this big category? And so that gives you the estimation of what's going on the network. We use this categorization on most of the tabs, here, and possibly here. So that's one of the basic things you can explore. Let's move on. CDP stats. This event stats was generated from only these 4 events: log, free, wipe, and draw. And the CDP stats, that shows you the basic stuff around your CDPs. It shows you how people open it, how much bytes happen, and so on. So let's dive into it. And here you can see just amount of open CDPs. So here we just count these open events that happen here. So basically that shows you how many new CDPs appeared on the network. And again, you see not so many CDPs opened on most of the cases, like not more than 20 CDPs per day. But with this Coinbase effect, there were a lot of new CDPs open. So that's actually a huge effect on the network. But as we remember, they didn't generate much volume, and so that's just inflated numbers. You can doom this to see the dynamics, but I wouldn't say that's changed a lot. New CDP users, that's actually basically the new addresses that opens a CDP each day. And again, let's filter out this Coinbase effect by doing this, and this. And we see that there's actually not so much new addresses opening CDP all the time, but I think the positive dynamics is in here. So it could be the sign that MakerDAO system is live and it's like gaining new users, which is awesome. That's about OpenCDPs and new users. Next group is a CDP distribution. So actually, we want to understand how much is logged on all CDPs and to see the distribution of it. That's mean and median value of logged is for each day. So we can see that the mean value of CDP is much more than median, especially last year. And that basically means that lots of people open big CDPs, so that makes your mean CDP up, but the median CDP is not so big. It's about like 35 ETH. So you can say that the average person opens a CDP with a 30 ETH. That's basically it. That's the same graph, but again, that's CDP distribution by logged ETH value. So that shows, again, these categories that is been presented earlier, but that's basically the same. And they show you with a total amount that is a black line, basically what does it consist from. So let's view this one. And you see that that's basically volume from ETH. So we see that the most part is generated by users that held from 10,000 to 100,000 ETH, and they can constitute about, let me check, about 50% of all Ether that is logged via Maker system. So we see that's actually the whales within the Maker system. They do a lot of stuff there. And an interesting thing that happened here in this graph, you can see that at some point a lot of really big players that hold more than 10,000 ETH on their CDPs, they exited the platform. So that's an interesting question why it happened on this day. Maybe that was just some internal stuff, their business, or maybe that was some thing around MakerDAO. And that's basically how you can do this. By the way, on the second, from the other hand, you see some dynamics, interesting dynamics from if this category, this brown category falls, this purple category is rising up. So you see it here and here again as well. That basically means that a lot of people who owed a lot of CDPs, a lot of ETH on CDPs, they free this event. They free their pooled ETH from their CDPs. So this volume goes down. Yeah, that's basically this graph. To summarize, this graph shows you how different categories of CDP interact with the system. Next thing is liquidation. Liquidation is, as you have remembered, this long process that happens here. Yeah, and that shows you how CDPs are liquidated. We see some spikes in liquidations, but basically most of the times it happen not more than 1 or 2 liquidations per day. And again, with this Coinbase effect that causes a lot of liquidation things, as you see here. That's it. And that's liquidation volumes. Again, you see a lot of byte events, a lot of liquidations, but this volume actually means nothing. So again, this Coinbase in fact just inflated the numbers, but didn't affect the system at all. Some total charts of liquidation. Imagine the price of Ether is going down. So what would happen to the system? The graph shows you these cases and how to do this. Imagine you want to understand what's happening if the price of Ether is going down by $100. So once the price of Ether is going down to $100, just put your mouse here. We see that there was a lot of, there was exactly 600 to 871 liquidation events. So that's basically about 600 CDPs have been closed. And total amount of ETH that is locked for these CDPs is about 40 million Ethereum. And you can see the dynamics. So if the price of Ether is going down, more and more CTPs will be liquidated. And that's basically a needed parameter for MakerDAO risk assessment team. So they can see if the system is protected enough, if there are a lot of enough sufficient funds being locked on CDPs, and they can adjust their decisions on government's call with this graph. Next one is also interesting. That's basically the same as this graph, but it shows you again liquidation distribution by groups that are presented earlier. So that's a total one. Let's switch it off. And you see that in this point, for example, this if the price of Ether is going down to 99 USD dollars, that would be liquidated within a big category group for 90 million of Ether. That's basically a lot. And you see here, so there is no any points on this part. So this line is just stops here. That means that there is no single CDP within this category that will be liquidated if the price is going up to 150% USD dollars, sorry. And that's actually a good sign because you see that all big CDPs are protected quite good. So you see the current price of this is about $230, and you see a lot of a big actually big like interval. If the ETH is going down, there wouldn't be much problems within the MakerDAO system. So there will be a lot of small liquidations, but that's basically small liquidations. We don't care much about this. And currently you can see the only point of this big category. So that means that there's only one CDP that is locked more than 10,000 of Ethereum. So that's basically it. To summarize, these two graphs shows you the distribution of how Maker system is protected against the fall of ETH price.
One question. So the current price of it is lower than that?
Yeah, that happens actually. I'm not sure about the current price of ETH.
I think I just looking at it now. It's in USD. It's $177.
Yeah, so that's this point, and you see that there is some volume of CDPs that should be liquidated, but the thing is, they so distributed from small CDPs that is not profitable to liquidate them. So if you do this whole cycle of all these byte events, you have to pay fees in Ethereum, so fee for miners. And the reason that you gain so less from this liquidation penalty, that is not sufficient for users to do this. So this is just locked, and nobody cares about this because it's not profitable to do bytes events for these CDPs. So that's basically how it works.
But this is like 1,000 ETH, which is locked?
Yeah, but it's about 1,000 ETH, but it's locked maybe about, I don't know, millions of small CDPs. Not millions, but thousands of small CDPs. And nobody cares about this.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. Thanks. Yeah, let's go. In liquidation price, this graphs actually shows you, it's basically not a real price, but it shows you a rough estimate of what.
Just can you get back to this? Now,
Yeah.
doesn't this kind of mean that, in theory at least, I can make a very small CDP, take some DAI, and if the price drops, I will not lose the ETH? Because now no one will want to do the liquidation.
So if you lock a small amount of ETH,
yeah, like I lock like ETH for $10. Let's say I take, I don't know, $5 in DAI, and then the price of it drops a lot, and then no one will care about my CDP, so no one will take it. So I will have, yeah.
I think this wouldn't happen because I suspect all these CDPs, they don't have DAI on, they don't have issued DAI, and that makes its liquidation ratio insufficient. So if any of the CDP that, for example, holds $10, if it issue DAIs, so at that point it becomes sufficient to buy this CDP, and that will like blown up as with liquidation. Yeah, that's basically a good thing because these CDPs are not, they have like two conditions. First, their funds are not sufficient, and second one, they don't have DAI issued or much DAI issued from each of these CDPs that is shown here.
But
Because
I mean, those liquidations, they only make sense if they have issued DAI, right? Because if they have not issued anything, the it will not get liquidated, or am I wrong?
yeah, that's the thing I skipped. That's probably wrong. That's all by me. But the general process of the general life cycle of a CDP, you do some events. For example, like you open a CDP, you can see the transaction here. That's basically the table that represents a basic CDP. That's a datetime, that's an argument, or that's action name, that's argument that happens, and some other ratio. Don't care about this much. And when you log some is, you see this log event. For example, you log some about one is, and you didn't issue DAI at this point. You see that your ratio, that is actually culturization ratio, is didn't calculated. So it can't fall against fixed culturization ratio that is fixed for all CTPs, and that is why nobody makes a byte event. So once you issue DAI, you see this draw event that issues your DAI. The ratio is computed at this point, and if it falls against 1.5, it will be liquidated. But the reason is all these small CDPs, they didn't issue DAI, so there is nothing to bite. So they can't, biters can't actually get DAI back.
Okay, then I don't understand this graph in that case. What I was thinking that it shows how much it will be liquidated if the price drops to a certain level, but this only makes sense if they have issued DAI, and if they, for those that have not issued DAI, well, they shouldn't be on the graph because nothing will be liquidated. Or am I?
Okay, that's a good point. So that's like a feature request. Sounds like a feature request. We can exclude all CDPs that didn't issue any DAI from this graph, and we see some different numbers. But I think it matters only for this small category. That's actually here, and for all big CDPs, you'll see basically the same numbers as here.
But isn't
But
like
yeah,
for one CDP, this liquidation price, isn't it a function of how much DAI you have issued?
yes.
Okay, so if you have issued 0 DAI, then the liquidation price is 0 because, right?
Oh, yes. So that means that you don't have to liquidate them.
Yeah. So if you have here, some CDP, which if some CDP is counted here with a liquidation price larger than 0, then this CDP must have issued DAI.
Mm-hmm.
So those small CDPs that are at the beginning, they must have issued some DAI.
I think the point why we calculate this on this graph is because we measure only is that is logged on the CDP, but we don't take into account on this point or issue DAI. And when we calculate then liquidation CDPs, we just take the numbers from from our database that is calculated by a different way. And when these two things collapse, we see this picture. So that shows you basically amount of is, but amount is not depending on DAI issued. And when we calculate numbers with byting, we only on that point we take into account DAI events, DAI issued.
Some. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I don't
it was
understand
to. I think we can come to this later.
Yeah. Okay. No problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically was to think about this. Okay. Next one, mean liquidation price. This graph shows you like the estimated is price on which total collateral would be liquidated. So that's again rough estimate. So let's take some day, for example, the 1st of September, and you see that his price on that day was 170 is, and the mean price for all CDPs that have some DAI issued, it's about 85 USD dollars. So imagine if on this day his price suddenly dropped to 85 USD dollars, there would be like not less than 50% of all CTPs being liquidated. Yeah, that's just a mean price, but it shows you like how much is the system safe. So when the distance between these graphs is big, like here or maybe here, so that means that a system is well protected against the fall of its price. And when it's very close, for example, like here, you see that's about 2 times different. It means that at this point, system becomes less safe, and we could expect some more liquidations, or maybe some people who issue some DAI wants to protect them, and they will lock more CTP. They will lock more Ether to their CTPs. So that that will lower the liquidation price.
Does the price of DAI in any way reflect this ratio, this risk?
No, nope.
No. Interesting.
Oh, yeah, that's basically CDP stats. Oh, you see, by the way, how it's calculated. Yeah, that's about equation. Or DAI supply is measure of this graph, but DAI price don't. So we don't think about DAI
No.
price.
I was thinking. Let's say that I am a DAI user, and I see that we're close to becoming liquidated. So shouldn't then I think that in that moment maybe I should think, okay, this DAI is kind of risky, so it's not worth $1; it's worth 99 cents. So maybe
I got the question. Yeah.
yeah.
So the reason is the trick with Maker system is they don't distinguish between DAI that are issued from a particular CDP. If your CDP will be destroyed, liquidated, it doesn't mean that exactly these DAI that were issued on this CDP will be destroyed. How the process works, they sell all pool East on a Oasis DEX for DAI, and basically another users that have some DAI, they see this auction, and it's profitable for them to buy pooled ETH and sell their DAI because the exchange rate is a little bit smaller. And this DAI from other users, they go to cover your debt, and the DAI that you own exactly from the CDP, they stays on your wallet and they didn't move at all. So that's because with DAI price that doesn't affect this.
Well, actually, I was just opening some crypto watch, I think, and I'm looking at the end of 2018. So now I'm looking at Bitfinex. and well, I don't know. I cannot say. I would kind of assume that in this period, at the end of 2018, the DAI price should have been lower than $1 to reflect this risk, because it's kind of risky. So if it's risky,
You
it should be
mean,
cheaper. But
I mean
I
the
don't
whole
really see
system,
that.
right?
Yeah, I mean, does the market in any way react to this risk or no?
Oh,
I mean,
I can't answer this question like precisely, but I think it's actually matters about how people trust MakerDAO system, like not the maker community, but the system itself. And they trust that if the ETH price is going down, just CCPs will be liquidated. Lots of DAI will be bought from decentralized exchanges, oasis with this pooled Ether, and that makes DAI price goes up because this smart contract that executed automatically, it will buy DAI to cover all the debt, and that will make DAI price going even up. So that's the system of that's how it's stabilized. Did you get this?
yeah, I get it.
Yeah, so at this point, maybe it was even, uh, it could happen that DAI price goes up, because if a lot of liquidations happens, again, a lot of DAI will be bought on decentralized exchanges with this side up contract, and a lot of DAI will be burned. So the DAI supply will be deflated, and it should not affect DAI price. Yeah, let's go to basically DAI supply that's in collateral sites. And the thing is, the maximum amount of DAI that could be issued is fixed. It's fixed by maker community. That's one of the hyperparameters that is set by via voting. And let's go to December. Yeah, you see this, a lot of DAI was actually burned. So I suspect after this, that happened a lot of liquidations that causes DAI drop, or DAI supply drop, and it saves the DAI price. Let's check the DAI price itself. Yeah, so here DAI price actually fall a little bit. Yeah, that's actually fall for 4 cents. That's a lot. Yeah, but again, this stays about $1, and we see that the mechanism that saves DAI price actually works even on this point.
Very nice.
Okay, so that's like total maximum DAI supply, and that's current DAI supply. You see that this parameter was changed only once, but I think if at some point current DAI supply will touch this 1,100 million, it will be against increased by maker community via governance code, via voting, and we'll see a new sale for this. But that's only my theory, not more. Yeah, that's the total amount of locked Ethereum on CTPs. See that it significantly grows here, and for the last maybe half a year, that's a little bit dropped. But I think that's fine, because I think it's connected with the general sentiment of the crypto. And that's it. And by the way, Maker is the top one DeFi app on Ethereum that has top one locked ETH. All other apps like Compound or No or Augur or etc., they have a lot, much less Ether locked. That's also available on, you can check the stats. Let me show you. Yeah, on our dashboard called ETH-locked. And you see that ETH-locked, that is MakerDAO, this pink line, it's much bigger than that is locked on Compound, or Legacy UNS, Uniswap, Augur Compound UNS. So Maker is the top one app for DeFi that is built on Ethereum, which is, I think, nice, and that's why we put a lot of effort by developing this. Yeah, that's locked in CDP's USD. So that's ETH measurement, and that is USD measurement. So you see that the trajectory is quite the same, but the peaks, when a lot of USD was locked, it goes somewhere here. So I suspect that ETH price, actually we can check this. Yeah, ETH price is just going down. That causes more people unlock their funds. So that's you can, your CTPs could be staying in the safe zone with this liquidation ratio, with less USD, with less ETH tokens, because the ETH price is going up, and you can see it here. So actually, MakerDAO was growing up to this point when the ETH price is going down, and it's just more people liquidate their CTPs here. That's basically clear with this graphic. Collateralization ratio. That's, let me remind you, the ratio that is needed for all CDPs to be liquidated. So each CDP is liquidated when its collateralization ratio falls to 1.5. And you see on this graph that mean collateralization ratio is much more than 1.5. So we can see that a lot of CDPs are protected. And you see the current collateralization ratio as 3. So on each DAI that is issued, so on these DAIs that are issued, we have $3 backed. So if the price is going by even 3 times, we have like a back system. But yeah, if it goes to three times, the ratio goes to 1, and it will be liquidated earlier. So what I can conclude from here is that it's like MakerDAO system currently is well protected, and that's actually a good sign. Also, thing that you can notice is that this collateralization ratio is quite correlated with the price here, and the dynamics is more or less clear here. So that's might be some interesting for maybe traders, or I don't know. You can investigate this. Yeah, and the next graph is a nominal collateralization ratio. That's actually some advanced stuff that I didn't mention that I didn't realize from the first time. But let me try to explain. That's this graph. This collateralization ratio depends on ETH price. You see this with this ratio is DAI price. Yeah. So, and if you want to go away from this from the fluctuations of ETH price movement, you just see on this graph. So that basically shows you how much ETH is locked divided by DAI supply. So that shows you the ratio between Ethereum and DAI supply that is locked and issued. And if the trend is going up, that means that DAI supply, each DAI has more backed assets in USD terms, and this doesn't count with ETH price. So we don't care much about the number itself on this graph, but we do care about the trend. And the trend is through the time, the nominal collateralization ratio is increasing. And that again means that DAI becomes more and more safer than at this point, because more ETH is locked with, which is aimed to back for DAI. So that's it. Next two graphs are collateralization ratio distributions. So actually they're the same graph as here, but again we split every CTP to a group that belongs. And I don't go into cover this much, but just one thing. You see that the lines, this purple line breaks here and here. It doesn't mean that the graph is broken. It means that there were no CTPs on this period of time which fell into this category. So I can conclude that on all this period of time, there were no single CDP that was held ETH on this interval from 10,000 ETH to 100k ETH. So that's it, and the same here. This is breaks. CDP characterization by distribution by call ratio, or these graphs are the same. Let me start with this one. It's easier to understand. You can see how much, let me use this, okay, how much which characterization ratio for each CDP is actually set. For example, I can conclude that 16% of all CDPs that exist in Maker system, they have characterization ratio from 0 to 200%. And much more CDPs, about like 45 minutes, 16, 30% of all CDPs have a characterization ratio in the interval of 200 to 300%. And that shows you again the distribution of how well CDPs are protected from the drop of ETH price. And this graph is basically the same, but it shows you not percentage ratio, but it shows you the absolute numbers. So these graphs are basically the same, and I prefer this one more. So yeah, you can basically switch this off just to see the dynamics or compare some of this. And that's it. And let's move to one of the most sophisticated categories that we have developed. To explain this, let me switch back to the slides and show you what could be done with when you have some DAI and you have some ETH locked. So at that point, you can lock your DAIs, or you can lock your ETH and get DAI. And after that, what you can do is to send DAI to some centralized exchange on the centralized exchange and get the ETH back. So at that point of time, you can earn ETH that you got from the DAI to a CDP. And at this point, you have more ETH that is locked on your CDP, and you can generate more DAI from this. And that's the thing what we call decentralized leverage. So when you get again DAI, you can go back to the cycle and again deposit DAI to exchange, deposit or sell DAI on exchange to Ether, deposit Ether on a CDP, and issue more DAI. And that's kind of infinite loop that could happen. Yeah, that's not so infinite because you have this safe ratio for DAI. But on these graphs, we try to show you how much ETH is used for this decentralized leverage. And this graph shows you a total amount of Ethereum that is locked, this black line, and the orange line shows you how much ETH is locked with this procedure. So how much ETH was replegged from the DAI and put back to CDPs. And the blue line is amount of shows you the amount of initial ETH that you have to put on the collateral when you want to do these infinite cycles. So to summarize, green line is the total amount of ETH that has been recycled, and the blue line is amount of original ETH that is needed to do this. So the dynamics about this is the same. So we can choose only one of them. For example, this one. Yeah, and we see that from 1.5 million of ETH that is locked, about 150k Ethereum was just replaced. So lots of people do this to hedge their risks, but the disadvantage with this leverage is that overall your leverage becomes innumerous, and you're not protected again from the fall of ETH price. So if the price of ETH is falling down, you just lose all your funds because they liquidated. But from the other hand, you have much more much more ETH that is protected from that is protected on the CDPs, and that's basically interest stats. That's again the share of it. So you can see that about 6% of all ETH that is locked is used for this infinite cycle, and that's one of the requests from Maker team who do risk analysis to build us. And I think these metrics are not officially released at this point. I think the guy who developed this, his name is Serge. He maybe will write several blog posts about this, or maybe one big blog post. And yeah, that's it. But that's like a pre-release of them. And
yeah, that's very interesting. Do you know how exactly it is detected that some DAI is used for leverage? It's used for buying it.
Yeah, so the algorithm is like basically this. So we detect patterns that when somebody issue DAIs, so this person increases its DAI depth, then it transfers DAI from the CDP to its owner address. So basically it gets the DAI. And after that, or if this DAI goes away, and then the ETH comes, we consider this at this cycle. We can't actually fill the whole trace from CDP to this address to exchange, because all trades that happens on exchanges, they're not stored in the blockchain, so we can't get them. So we assume that any token that is been on this pattern is actually used for this plugin.
That's okay. That's pretty cool. I think you can estimate the maximal, because you cannot like compute precisely how much leverage people use, but maybe you can estimate some kind of maximal also, if it's possible. Like
I think
every read that comes, you assume that it was bought with DAI if the person has transferred DAI to somewhere.
Yeah, actually, that's algorithm works in this way.
Yeah.
So it shows you maximum amount of this.
Yeah, but it's for one day. Yeah, so you assume that it was bought within the day. Yeah, I guess that's fine.
We can increase this window so numbers going bigger. But I think you don't want to wait too much if you do this leverage. You want to do all the operations with this with the current ETH price. You don't want to wait too much. I think one day is enough.
That's very nice algorithm. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. So thanks to Serge who developed this. Yeah, and the same thing actually here. So it shows you just 4 days all this that has been locked. Oh, sorry. Yeah, but this blue line show the share of this pledged ETH. So you can compare total ETH that been collateral on that day and the amount of pledged ETH. And that's the share of it. So you can see that currently the share is about 20%. So that's it. Let's move on. That was most of the sophisticated stuff we built. And the next one, DAI and Maker holders. So Maker community cares about who owns the DAI token. So that's quite important parameter. And we have some bunch of general on-chain metrics that could be found on other places on our platform, like median balances. Like you see it here, it's better with smoothing. So let's smooth it. Yeah, or number of holders and total holders balance. Let's go through it. Yeah, you see that mean balances are much more than DAI for DAI, because there are some addresses that owes much DAI, a lot of DAI, and that makes this median balance goes up. It could be exchanges or compound wallets or something like that. And these graphs, actually, let me go back to no smoothing. Yeah, so this shows you amount of holders that owe a particular amount of coins. I think let's consider two cases. First one is number of addresses that owes on less than one coin. We see that about, I guess, we have 130k of addresses that holds any DAI, and 100 of them are holding less than one DAI coin. So what does it mean? That there are a lot of addresses that holding a dust. So that's it. But if you go to total holders balance graph and you check how much coin they exactly store, you see that all of these addresses store less than 10k DAI. So that's basically nothing. So we see how much addresses hold actually nothing. And another case, you can see that there are only 10 addresses that holds more than 1 million DAI. And you see that the amount, the share of these addresses for all DAI is a big. So 10 addresses holds about 25 millions of DAI. So that's about like 40%. So I can say that DAI token is highly concentrated, because 10 addresses, again, they have about 30% of all DAI coins, which is quite interesting parameter. And you can investigate this for all categories that we present here. So you see these addresses that don't hold much, and their supply, they influence on the network is not so big. And the next thing that is developed, I think that's one of the most interesting metrics. It's DAI holders breakdown. So what we do here, we track all the DAI that is issued. So basically this blue line is DAI supply. And we have some addresses that are whitelisted by us and Maker community. And we have labels on them. So what could be distinguished here? So if we switch unknown addresses, we can see that a lot of DAI is held by these categories introduced here. So let's take, for example, centralized exchanges. We have this sex letters. So we see that amount of DAI that's held on centralized exchanges is about 1.2 millions of DAI, and in like percentage, it's about 1.6%. That's not actually a lot. Yeah, but the interesting thing, the most active DAI users that are known by us are loan and margin category. So that's actually the platforms that gives you services for loan or margin your coins. And you see this category owes about 20% of all DAIs, which is a lot actually. And it shows you that 20% of DAI are used on another DeFi platforms, which is an interesting stats. We have some other categories like CDP owners. One of them are my favorite. CDP owners show you how much addresses that have an open CDPs, how much do they have, do they owe. So, and you see that the addresses that opened CDPs, they held about 4.6% of all DAI coins. And that's, I think, not much. That's not much because they, of course, obviously, they don't want to just store the DAI. They want to put DAI to some other things. Maybe they want to purchase some things with them, or maybe not. And I think a lot of DAI should go to loan margin category. And the thing is, now we are interested in where exactly these tokens are held. And if you go to the next graph, you can choose all the categories that are presented here. So we just get loan margin. And you see a list of addresses that we track. So you see that we track Compound, Dharma, DY, DX, and NOAA. And you see that Compound is the ultimate leader of this. So most of DAI that is held on all DeFi platforms are stored on the Compound. And note that this is unutilized DAI. So that's the rough balance of Compound address. But actually, much more DAI are stored on the Compound because the Compound is a lending platform. And a lot of, we don't, on this graph, we don't track the addresses, the DAIs that are being loaned from been borrowed from the compound. And this compound Theodine, that's again the biggest one. And some time ago, they switched to second protocol. You see compound 1 becomes less popular and compound 2 becomes more popular. Or you can investigate any category. So for example, let's investigate treasuries. So the treasury is some addresses that are known as multisigs. And we know that Aragon wallet owns a lot of DAI. So that's basically it. The thing is, there are a lot of unknown addresses. So you see these users. We call this user because we can't categorize, we can't put this address in any of this wallet. But that may happen that means some, for example, centralized exchange wallet, and we count it as a user category. So you can check for all addresses here. Yeah, and if anybody notice that we miss some address, for example, if you know that this address, which is actually have no label in our system, if you know, if it's, for example, some centralized exchange, you can just contact Santiment team and tell us about this. So it helps us to improve this graph and these stats. And top DAI holders, I think it's pretty clear. So that shows you total amount of addresses that hold DAI. And again, we see that the compound is top 1 address. Yeah, that compound V2 that is belongs to loan class, and it holds about 50% of all DAIs. And you can investigate all addresses that we have. You can see some CDP owners, some centralized exchanges, some decentralized exchanges, some treasuries. Yeah, and you can just go and see. So what is it? Let's go to compound. Yeah, so we see that's exactly compound address for DAI, and it has a numerous DAI balance. So that's basically it. Oh, yep. So that's about this tab. And let's move to CDP owner balances. So on that point, if we try to distinguish between who owns DAI and Maker, on this part we see like key addresses that has open CDPs and how do they actually behave. Currently, this tab consists only on one graph, but we going to release a new version soon. So let me switch to the new version. So it has much more graphs and much more things. So let me show how it looks like on the new version. I think it would be developed soon. On this card, you can see the methodology description. So that shows you how we calculate all these metrics. And how does it work? For each day, we count the CDP owner, and we distinguish between all CDP owners on the basis how much funds or how much USD they logged. If an address holds less than 10,000 K USD, it falls to a small category, and etc. And you can see these categories here. So, for example, one of the hottest topics about Maker community, they're going to implement multi-collateral CDPs. So currently you can lock only Ethereum, but Maker team wants to create CDPs, and on that CDPs you will be able to lock not only Ethereum but some other tokens. And a lot of people argue about what exactly tokens should be put to a collateral. So they can't actually add any token they want, but they have to do it one by one. So the question is, what is the most urgent tokens to put? And these graphs helps you to distinguish between which tokens are popular for all the CDP owners. And that's basically it. So let's count all CDP owners. So we count all addresses we have as marked as CDP owners. And let's put some tokens. So we want to see XDAI token, Maker token, data token, for example, link. I know that's quite interesting. Yeah, that's not. So this first graph, that is basically currently is the same as our current version. It shows you amount of net amount of USD, net amount of tokens in USD terms of this address in build holding. So we see currently all CDP owners, they off about like 200k DAI, which is not so much, but they also have a lot of Maker, and that's actually a good sign for Maker community, because I can say that at least 1 million Maker is held by the addresses that that participate in all the CDPs. So I can say that if the next voting will happen, a lot of addresses that actually are interested in the Maker system as a system, they will vote, or maybe they will vote with the Maker tokens. So that's basically it. And you can check actually any tokens you want. So we have a full list here, and you can see the dynamics of this token hold on all CDP owners. And one of the most interesting things are link token. Suddenly this summer, link token becomes very popular across these CDP owners. And this graph doesn't actually shows you how much or how many addresses hold this link token. But if you go here, you can investigate actually that is all this amount that is suddenly grow up. Does it actually an effect caused by single address, or just all CDP owners realize that they need link at that point and they start to buy this? And this graph shows you top holds ratio across all that balances. So you see that with this token of link, top one holder, it talks about, let me switch this one. It holds about like from 30 to 90% of all link tokens that hold by all this category. And for example, top 5 holders, they off about, they naturally have 100% of all link tokens that are placed on the addresses. So you can see that all this amount are concentrated on the 5 addresses, and that's actually like concentration ratio on a new shape. And of course, you can check only, for example, medium CDP owners. That's CDP owners that off more than 10,000 DAI, but less than 10,000 DAI. Yeah, and again, you see they off some link token. And with this category, at least almost single address controls all the link tokens that is placed in this category. You can do it with any tokens. So for example, let's see how well concentrated is Maker token across CDP owners that have a lot of locked funds. So you see that top 10 addresses, for example, they off about 90% of all Maker tokens that is placed on this category. And for example, top 50 addresses, it offs about 99%. So that's it. And one more thing about this category is external balance ratio. External balance ratio shows the ratio between ETH and dropped ETH that are owned by CDP owners and all funds that are locked on the system. So what does it mean? We know that at any point of time, we know exactly how much Ether is locked on the Maker system. But the question is it enough? Is it like how much else could be locked? And this graph shows you the percentage of how many well-convertible tokens like Ethereum and Wrap Ethereum are held by CDP owners, and how much could be locked within all smart contracts for Maker system. So let's take this day. So we see 65%. So that means that if you divide all ETH and drop this balance of all CDP owners, if you divide it to a CDP locked, you get 65%, which means that all locked CDPs or all locked ETH on CDPs could be increased by 65% without actually making too much transactions. So that's like an equivalent of money supply in economics. So that's high liquid money. So that shows you the ratio of high liquid money to locked tokens, locked on all system tokens. So the more is metric, that means the more funds could be locked, and that helps you to again to measure how well the system is protected. If you see on this point, for example, that not much tokens could be converted fast, so that means that maybe it's less safe. But on this point, you see that it's becoming much safe because CDP owners of more recent drop this, so they can make these lock events very easily. So they don't need to trade other tokens for ETH, convert it to drop this, and then go through the cycle. But they can easily convert the Ethereum drop to Ethereum here. So that's it. And two tabs has left, Maker and Fee stats. This is the most recent tab we developed. So that's actually just a supply of Maker tokens. You see that's decreasing a lot, but that's a matter of scale. You see this 1 million and 0.99 million, so that's a decrease less than 1%. So don't be afraid of this. Yeah, annual burn rate. Yeah, when I told you about this VIPE events, this one, the makers that are put for stability fee, it's actually burned. And this graph shows you how much maker token will be burned if all the fees that been accrued on that day, if they remain the same for a year. For example, let's take yesterday, that's today. Yeah, if all this fee that were gone with vibes, yeah, if all these maker tokens were remain the same for the last of the year, we'll see that I've lost. Yeah, I see that 3% of all maker tokens will be burned, and that's actually a lot. And this graph shows you like on August 28th of August, if all the vibes became the same, we will actually deflate 4.6% of all maker tokens. And that's a good sign for traders, because the assumption is if the maker supply goes down, so possibly the maker price is going up. So that's interesting stuff. And all the rest stats are about stability fee. So this one is stability fee paid. So actually how much stability fee were paid with DAI. And we see actually a lot of DAI goes to a maker system. Like on this point, like a lot of DAI was paid. And actually this thing, which is actually really big, it was paid by a single guy who owned a very big CDP. And when he closed his big CDP, he tended to pay a lot. So that's actually generated only by a single person. And this last one is stability fee. That's the like parameter set by maker community, and it's set by governance. Oh, actually, it's changed. Wow. Yeah, that's changed a few days ago. So currently it's 14.5%. So it means that if you have one ETH locked on CDP for the whole year, and after the year you want to pay the debt back, you have to pay 1.14 Ethereum to the system. So that's stability fee. As I have said, it is set by voting mechanism, and that's why it doesn't change a lot. So it changes a few times maybe in a year. Yeah, one more graph. If you paid with Maker and DAI, so the thing is, you can pay. Where is it? Yeah, you can pay this Vibe event with Maker token, or you can sell your DAI on Oasis DEX and for Maker token and pay it like with DAI. So there's not much difference between this, but that's again a good metric for traders, because if you see that a lot of fee was paid with DAI, not with the Maker, it means that a lot of trades will be happening against Maker via DAI. So we expect that the Maker price is tend to grow up. Yeah, that's just a hypothesis that you can test by your own. But That's the thing. Actually, I think we have some more metrics here. Yeah. Yeah, that's the same. Yeah, and we go to social stats now. That's the metrics that were developed by our social expert, Ivan Klimuk. Yeah, we always have a seminar that is that explains you all these metrics. But to keep it short, you can check some parameters like which project you want to check, which source you want to get the data from, and you can see the context here. So I can say that today the context is lots of people talking about risk, about hedging rates. So that's actually interesting thing to investigate. So that's like social volume, just amount of mentions that happen across all the things. You see that when the DAI price is changing, a lot of social volume is changing again. And it's positive, negative sentiment. Or you can go to this or to our previous seminar. But the one thing I want to go here is that on this point, I think, yeah, that's what this point, in the March of 2019, it was a lot of squirrels about maker team on the networks. And you see that this parameters going down. So that's probably means that the sentiment of the community is going up. And you see that the price also was quite low. So that's kind of interesting thing. That's basically it. And the one thing you see on all graphs is insights section. So that's insights written by our experts and actually any person who wants to join the platform. So if you publish insight about the MakerDAO community, it just fails here, and that's like created things of different insights and interesting things that happen across the network. So don't hesitate checking this. Yeah, or I think we'll put the link for this presentation, so you will be able to access the graphs. And there is some literature that I used for this presentation, so you can go through it and just check this. So that's it. I think I finished. If you have any other questions, we'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you for this very interesting presentation. I learned a lot.
Thanks.
Are there any questions?
Okay, I think not.
Just to say one thing, to say it again. So this is now available on our website at the site that Alex showed, and it is completely free still. So don't be, to all the people that are watching us at YouTube, on YouTube, go and check it out.
Okay, so thank you guys for watching this video. Yeah.
Thanks.
We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Thank you.
goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.